start soldering some of the stuff together. So right here we have the subwoofer potentiometer mounted to the board, and we have the three leads that we already soldered to the amp board. We're going to work from the left to the right, because that's how it's easier for me to solder this. We get it to sit there by itself, which it is. So now I'm going to get my soldering iron and get some heat. There. Okay. Alright, that's holding itself in there. So again, I'm going to get my soldering iron, put a little heat on it. Boop. There, done. And there, that's in there like that. And get my soldering iron, put a little heat on it. There. Okay, so there you go. Those three are hooked up. Oh, let me see. There. The input, yeah, this is the sort of tricky one. This is the input right here, this little thing. These leads are very tiny. They're very, very tiny, and it's real easy to put too much heat on them, and then it'll just sit there and melt. I got the white wire in the one that it's supposed to go into. You have to look at the instructions to know which one's which. But the white wire's in there. Okay. Give it a look. Give it a tug. Yeah, that's fine. So the white wire's there. The next one will be the black one. The black one will go in the middle. I'm going to solder that one up. Real quick on the heat. I'm serious, if you leave that heat on there for more than a second or two, you can feel the tab loosening up from the plastic that holds it. It's really, really tricky. Alright, I did get one little strand of wire. I don't know if you can see, one little strand of wire. Golly. I have to bend that over with the pliers, that's fine though. I don't have a problem with that. So, I'll get the heat on that very briefly. There. If you got your soldering iron up to temp pretty good, you don't have to leave the heat on there for very long. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to take a about 3-inch piece of wire or so. We need to attach it from the center input of the DC input jack to the bottom part of the switch. Okay, so in order to do this, this is roughly a 3-inch piece. I stripped off a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch, I'd say, from both ends. I'm going to just put this, hopefully you can see that, I'm going to thread this through the hole of the bottom terminal of the power jack, and I'm going to solder that on. Try to do this so you can see it. Alright, give it some heat. Okay. Now for this, since this is a power line, again I'm using the thicker, I think it's 18 gauge or something like that. Just because it's gonna be holding the power, so I want something a little thicker. And then the other end of this is going to get inserted into the center of the input jack. Now that's pretty thick metal there, so you're going to have to put the heat on it for a little bit longer than normal to get that to heat up enough for the solder to really take. So if you can see that, let me see. Okay, so I'm going to put the heat on it. A couple seconds. there's some fair amount of solder in there. Looks like I did a decent job. Let it cool for a couple seconds. Give it a tug. Sometimes with like thicker terminals, it's easy to get like a surface solder where it just sort of sticks a little bit, but it really hasn't heated things up enough for it to really make contact. That's why you want to really give it a good tug and make sure you really made the proper connection, and we did. We're okay there, so that's fine. Alright, next step. Okay, next step is take the black wire that comes off the amp board that gives the amp power, and you're going to attach it to the negative side, or the outer terminal of the DC input jack. Should go in there. Well, most of it's going. A couple of the leads are bending around. I don't really mind that as long as it all gets soldered. So what we're going to do is we're going to solder that. We're also going to solder a 3-inch black wire. This is going to get used for the indicator light for the LED. Just strip off an 1/8 of an inch or so, a little more than an 1/8 of an inch. We're going to solder that in with this. Okay, so anyway, I've got this all kind of rambled together here. So again, it's the thick black wire coming from the amp board and the thinner black wire that's going to actually go to the LED. So we're just going to put some heat on this. Put some solder onto that. There's a nice big healthy shiny looking blob there. Everything is good. And I'm tugging on it. And everything's nice and tight, so there's no problems there. Okay, so the next step is we have to wire up, get ready to wire in the LED. Now the positive terminal on the LED is the longer one, so I'm going to sort of bend that out a little bit like that, just so we remember that's the positive one. Parts Express sells a kit that includes, well, I have this kit. So a package includes 100 of the 5mm blue LED lights, plus limiting resistors for both 12 volt and 5 volt applications. So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking 2 of the resistors. These are 470 ohm resistors, a 1/4 watt. You can use whatever you want to use if you find bigger ones that are the right. I mean, there's lots of places online where you can figure out what type of resistance you need to bring down from, say, 16 volts to like 3 volts or whatever this thing needs, whatever your LED needs. But for this, since I used the package, I just picked 2 of these 470 ohm resistors, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder 2 of them together in series. But what I have to do first is I have to do the same thing I did with mounting the wires to the subwoofer for the potentiometer, and I made a little tube out of this paper clip. Hopefully you can see it. It's basically just a tube of wire. Oops. Take the paper clip out. This will fit through that, and then you should be able to just solder that together to which I will attempt to do right now. Solder that together and join those 2 resistors together so that they are one there. So the next thing we got to do is cut off about 1/2 inch or so of the lead on one of the resistors, and then again do the wrap thing where we wrap it around a paper clip. Hope this is showing up. If not, hopefully the words will be descriptive enough. But so you just make a little tube, and that tube fits hopefully over the positive LED lead, and of course you can kind of tweak and crimp and press to have that fit together so it's comfortable. And just give that a little quick solder up. So there it is. You've got the negative lead of the LED is still untouched. The positive lead has 2 470 ohm 1/4 watt resistors. There's better ways of doing that, obviously, to just use one of the correct value, but this is what I have, and so this is what I'm using. And you can buy the kit from Parts Express that has, I think, roughly 10 of each. So it'd be a pretty easy thing just to buy that kit and have enough stuff to do this and plenty of other stuff with in the future if you like playing with LEDs and resistors and stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of heat shrink tubing and shove it over the whole kit and caboodle. Wait, you're going to put a heat shrink over resistors? Yeah, they don't really get hot at all. I mean, I've tested it a bunch of different ways, and there's like absolutely no heat there to speak of. There's not a lot of amperage. If there was a lot of amperage, it would get hot, but it's really just running an LED, so it's kind of no problem. So, dang, that's hot. A torch. Alright, so there, I heat shrunk that heat shrink tubing to it. What that does is just basically protect it from, so it's not going to touch anything else on the amp board, because it's basically going in here. We're going to wrap this lead around to the positive with another wire, so just want to make sure it's protected and not touching stuff, because there is some exposed stuff there. We're just trying to keep things safe, that's all. Okay, we're on the home stretch now. We're down to the last few steps, and what we're going to do now is we're going to glue in the LED into its hole around the edge. Now, depending on how tight you made your hole for the LED, that's going to depend on how much you have to worry about this being a lot or a little. My hole for the LED was a little bit bigger than, it's not very snug, in other words, so I really need to count on the silicone to kind of hold the thing in place. But for now, we want to take the positive lead coming from the board, okay, coming from the amp board itself, and we're going to put this in the hole, the top hole of the switch. Put that wire right in there like that. It's just about touching the other lead, but I'll snip the wires, so that's nothing to worry about. What I am so ineloquently trying to say here is that I'm going to take the positive lead of the LED that we attached the two resistors to, try to bend that around and tuck that in with the top lead of the switch there where I just inserted the wire. Reflow that there, okay. Trim off the excess there. And see, congratulations, I just completely broke that switch. So I gotta redo that whole thing. Darn it. That's no good, that's no fun. So, I gotta redo that. Well, that's a life, huh? See if I can find another switch and redo that with. Alright, well, I got that old switch out that I just broke. And I'm cleaning up the silicone now. It's already actually started to set up, so physically have it mounted again. I'm going to connect the negative extra line coming from the negative from the DC input here, jack, to the negative side of the LED. Okay, here we go. I'm going to try to solder this on there like this. It's soldered, it's connected. Now all I got to do is press it together a little bit. And slide the heat shrink tubing over it. The torch, shrink the heat shrink closed. That's pretty much it as far as construction goes. I always have to seem to rush at the end to try to fit everything in, and I hate to do that, but these little leads here, we have to get the signal from the amplifier board to the binding posts. So I use this speaker wire, cut off an inch of insulation around one end of each one, looped it into a loop, twisted it around, and then you throw a little bit of solder on it. It kind of firms everything up. So you can put that over the binding post shafts, tighten them down with some thread lock, and then wire them into the back of the amp board at the appropriate places, and then you're good to go. So that's basically it. I know I rushed a little bit, left a few things out, I guess, but the instructions really give you the full information as far as what you need to do and how you need to do it. So look to that for even more information, and there'll be a link available for that.